We are on the record for hearings in the matters listed in the North Dakota Industrial Commission hearing docket for May 31st. I am David Garner, hearing examiner for these hearings. We are at the hearing room for the Department of Mineral Resources, Oil and Gas Division, and it is 9 a.m. We have two cases today that will be consolidated into one hearing. We'll begin with the first one, case number 30793. Petition of Resonance Exploration North Dakota LLC for an order providing for the unitized management operation and further development of the proposed West Roth Modison filing unit area consisting of lands within the West Roth field in Bottineau County, North Dakota, for approval of the unit agreement and the unit operating agreement constituting the plan of unitization for the proposed West Roth Madison filing unit area, for approval of the plan of operation, vacating the applicable spacing orders, and such further and additional relief. We'll also be calling case number 30794, application of Resonance Exploration North Dakota LLC for an order of the Commission determining that the plan of unitization for the West Roth Madison filing unit area, Bottineau County, North Dakota, has been signed, ratified, or approved by owners of interest owning that percentage of the working interest and royalty interest within said unit, as is required by applicable statutes and rules of the Commission. All interested parties, please come forward.
Thank you, Mr. Examiner. Lawrence Bender, P.O. Box 1855, Bismarck, North Dakota, appearing in these two matters, case 30793 and 30794, on behalf of Resonance Exploration North Dakota, LLC. Perhaps a few housekeeping matters might be in order. For case 30793, we're going to have 3 witnesses and 17 exhibits. And after we get through those exhibits, then we'd like to switch over to case 30794, and we'll be calling one witness in this case, and that's the land witness who will also be testifying in case 30793. I'd also like to point out that after the filing of these documents with the Commission, the original application had a copy of the unit agreement and unit operating agreement. Some typographical errors were found. Exhibit 1 in case 30793 has several tabs. One of the tabs is a unit agreement. What we've done is we've corrected those typos in the unit agreement that appears as tab 1, but just for the ease of finding those corrections, we've also handed out to the Commission red lines which show the changes. One is a typo in 18.3. Spell check didn't catch that one, I guess. And then we also just had some, I guess, silly errors is what I'll call them, on the 1.1 and 1.2 of the document. And then one other thing I would point out, and we don't have a red line for this, but you may recall a couple months ago, Resonance was before the Commission requesting the unitization. I can't remember the full name, but it was a Huber unit, and there were some questions about the COPUS agreement that was included in that, and before an order was ultimately entered, the Commission requested that we change the COPUS, and what we've done here is we've submitted an identical COPUS for this unit as we did in the previous. Once again, I believe when we filed it, we didn't have the correct COPUS, but if you look at Exhibit 1 in the unit agreement, I guess that would be in the unit operating agreement, you'll find a COPUS identical to what was filed in the Huber unit. So with that, if there aren't any questions, I'm prepared to call for witnesses.
First witness, okay. Ms. Gosling. Oh, I'm sorry.
So Lawrence, just to clarify, the COPUS that you filed identical to the one in the Huber unit, has that been amended as per the order?
What I recall, Mr. Bohr, is that you requested that we submit a new COPUS, which is what we did, and that would have been incorporated into the unit agreement, unit operating agreement that was ultimately confirmed or approved by the Commission.
Because I believe that when the order was issued, the I'll call it the billing rate was prime plus 3%. That it was order required that we be modified to prime plus 1%, and I don't know that that's been done yet. When I looked at the COPUS that was pre-filed in this case, it still had the 3% in it.
Yes, and that would have been not pre-filed, but would have been filed with the application. But what we have done is in the
Okay.
ratification portion of it, we have now substituted a new COPUS,
Okay.
which is identical to the one in Huber.
Okay, thank you.
And I looked closely, excuse me for going on about this, but I looked closely, and I think the other issue was, it was tied to a Wall Street Journal rate, and I think the commission requested that it be tied to a prime rate at the Bank of North Dakota +1, which is what we did.
Yeah, the commission didn't specify which bank it was, but I noticed that was changed to the Bank of North Dakota, which is fine.
Okay.
Thank you.
One other item, Lawrence, when you were giving your preamble about the typos that were corrected,
Yes.
you indicated that they're corrected in this packet of exhibits you handed?
Yes, they're corrected, but so that you didn't have to go through it carefully and find out what changes we made, I handed out Sarah helped me hand out a red line, and the red line will reflect what changes were made. But
I see
this
the,
doc,
I see the change on the red line,
Yeah.
but it doesn't appear that they were in this. This looks like the original. I mean, look,
really.
yeah.
Well, I guess that wasn't our intent. Let's see, well, I'm
Look at
looking at,
1.1.
I'm looking at 1.1, and
Still
one of the
says
things we
640.
changed was from 640 to 720. That change shows up. Unitized formation.
Lawrence, that is not in the copy I have. It still says 640,
Okay.
which is,
Well, I don't know how that happened, that I got a correct copy and nobody else did, but I guess what I'll request is that the record remain open so that I can substitute a correct copy of the unit agreement. And then I'll also be sure that you have a correct copy of the COPUS. But I apologize, mine is correct, but there must have been a problem when the copies were made. So thank you for pointing that out to me, Mr.
And we can keep the record open. How long do you?
Let's, so I get it right, let's do it for, what was we were doing like June 7th or something like that, or
June 10th.
June 10th? Let's
Yeah.
just do June 10th.
Okay.
Okay.
The record will remain open until June 10th.
Well, thank you, and once again, I apologize for the error.
And there may be other changes, so we'll see how long the record will be at the end of the hearing.
Right. That's fine. Okay, so back to the witnesses. Ms. Gosling,
Yes,
do you solemnly swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be true and correct to the best of your knowledge and belief?
yes.
Jody, would you state your full name for the record, please?
Jody Gosling,
And Jody, by whom are you employed?
Resonance Exploration,
In what capacity?
as a landman.
And in that capacity, have you had an opportunity to testify before the commission on previous occasions?
I have,
And you had your qualifications accepted as that of an expert?
yes.
I'll offer the further testimony, this witness is that of an expert.
Motion granted.
Jody, I'm going to first direct your attention to the exhibits for case number 30793. Do you have a packet of those exhibits in front of you?
I do.
Okay. And I'm going to have you skip the first cover page and skip the second cover page, and then let's go to what's been marked as Exhibit 1 in this packet. Can you tell me what Exhibit 1 is?
Exhibit 1 is the greater area map with the outline of lands we are discussing this morning in Bottineau County, and it's located just east of Lambda.
Okay, and what is the green outline that you have on this exhibit?
It is the proposed unitization, which is currently our DSU.
Okay.
Lawrence, sorry, did you hand out a secondary set of the exhibit pages today? Or are they just in the original
I thought you
application?
just had those.
We only got 30794.
Well, we have them from the original application,
Yeah,
but
I-
I don't know if everyone printed them, so
Yeah,
they'd be in your,
okay.
I don't think. I just assumed that, well, here, yeah, I guess I do have some here, so give me a minute. I apologize.
Oh. Oh, okay. Thanks.
most times you bring your own because you have notes on them, so, but I apologize for those people who didn't bring a set. How many did you hand out, sir? 6. I'm just joking. We ready? Okay, Jody, let's go to the next exhibit in the packet, Exhibit 2. Can you tell me what Exhibit 2 is?
You bet. Exhibit 2 is the map and list of mineral interest owners in the proposed unitization and current pooled DSU. Residents has 100% working interest.
Okay. And I believe this map was prepared as a result of the last hearing we had on Huber. There was a request to break up the tracks and indicate who the owners were. Is that your understanding?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Let's then go to Exhibit 3. Tell me what Exhibit 3 is.
I'm going to pass it off to Gary if that's okay.
Well, let's, I'm just going to ask you a couple questions, and then we can
Okay.
pass it off to Gary after that.
Sure.
Looking at Exhibit 3, that's kind of a blow-up of the spacing unit that you've depicted on Exhibit 1, is that correct?
Yes, it is.
And it also shows the well inside the spacing unit and proposed unit, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, and so this was the spacing unit for the well when the well was drilled, the filing 3-36, is that correct?
Yes.
And there was a pilot project done on this particular well. It was the spacing unit during the pilot project, is that correct?
Absolutely.
Okay, and now you're requesting that it also be the unitized area for the well if the commission grants the unitization of this area.
Yes.
No further questions of this witness.
Thank you.
Any questions from the staff?
Okay, one quick question, I think, on exhibit number 2.
Sure.
The parties you have listed as royalty interest owners, and the coloration you have on the map, are they 100% owners across that entire, I guess, so in the blue block, what you have colored blue is text, and then in the blue block, is that 100% they own across the whole thing, undivided?
Yes.
Okay. And that would be the same for the green block, the owners there would own the 100% of that tract, or not tract in
Yeah.
this case, but the depicted area?
Parcel?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. Yes.
Jody, on Exhibit 2, what's the significance of the lighter blue area? Is that just trying to highlight the section number?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Jody, this is Lynn Helms. So on Exhibit 2, you've shown acres. Is that just a number of net acres? Do they actually own an undivided percentage interest across that entire lease parcel?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Walker,
Yes.
do you solemnly swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be true and correct to the best of your knowledge and belief?
I do.
Gary, would you state your full name for the record, please?
Gary Walker,
And Gary, by whom are you employed?
Resident Energy.
In what capacity?
I'm the president and the chief operating officer.
And in that capacity, have you testified before the commission previously?
Yes.
And had your qualifications accepted as that of an expert?
Yes.
I'd offer the further testimony of this witness that of an expert.
Motion granted.
Gary, I'm going to have you turn to Exhibit 3. I know Jody spent a little time discussing that exhibit, but I'd like you to take a look at it as well. And can you identify Exhibit 3, even though Jody did, and briefly discuss what's contained upon it?
Exhibit 3 is, as previously discussed, it's the proposed unitization area, and it is the existing DSU when we drilled the filing 3 of 36 well, 3-leg well, and last year we had this area approved for a pilot water flood. So last summer we drilled the 6 of 36 filing injector well, which is on the map also, and we're currently injecting water into that well.
Okay, then let's go to the next exhibit, Gary, Exhibit 4. Can you tell me what that is?
Exhibit 4 is a structure contour map on the top of the Midale porosity. Midale is the productive zone in here, and this map was constructed using proprietary seismic data as well as the well data itself.
Okay, anything special or unique you want to tell us about the structure?
It's kind of mapped as a syncline almost, with in the middle of section 36 it gets a little bit lower.
All right, then let's go to Exhibit 5. Can you tell me what Exhibit 5 is?
Exhibit 5 is an isopath map of the Midale porosity. The contour interval is 5 feet, and we used our structure map as well as the well log data in the area and our seismic to construct this map.
And Exhibit 6?
Exhibit 6 is the net pay map. We use our well data and our, including our horizontal well data and our seismic to make this map.
Okay. Now, looking at Exhibit 5 and Exhibit 6, I think it's pretty obvious that what Resonance is recommending is that the entire spacing unit as it now exists be included in the unitized area. Generally speaking, the commission will typically try to contract around the reservoir boundaries. Can you explain to the commission why you're recommending that the unitized area be the same size and shape as the spacing unit?
Well, the original filing 336H well has been producing for about a year and a half now, and our feeling is if we were to reduce some of the mineral owners' royalties, reduce their working interest in the unit, they're going to be quite unhappy, and there may be some negative pushback against that. So we just feel it would be best to keep it simple and keep everybody whole.
Okay, and you mentioned that when the well was drilled, this was your proposed spacing unit. Has it also continued as the spacing unit while you've been conducting the pilot project?
That's correct.
Okay, and from the standpoint of Resonance, does it make any difference to Resonance whether it's your proposed entire spacing unit, or if the commission were to carve down the spacing unit and just include what you have on exhibits 5 and 6 as the reservoir area?
No, we have 100% of the mineral owners leased up, and it makes no difference to us.
So in your opinion, it makes no difference to Resonance, but it could cause some problems with respect to the various mineral owners, basically creating a have and have not within the spacing unit. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, we believe it will cause some problems.
Okay. All right, let's go on to the next exhibit. Probably fits in more with an engineering testimony, but why don't you just briefly discuss what's contained upon it?
This is the cumulative oil and water production from our producing well, the 336H. and the numbers are up on the section 36 there. The fume oil production at the date of this map was made was 12,477 barrels. The fume water was 17,676 barrels.
Okay, and the engineering witness is going to talk about this in more detail, but you're hoping to see significantly more oil produced if this field is unitized and you can continue to inject water into the formation. Is that correct?
Yes.
All right, let's go on to the next exhibit, Gary. It's been previously marked as Exhibit 8. Can you tell me what Exhibit 8 is?
It's the logs from our type well. It shows the unitized interval that we are proposing from the Mississippian unconformity down to the base of the state A marker.
Okay, and can you describe, is that the unitized interval that you just described, or can you describe it in more detail?
It is the unitized interval, and it's got the Midale porosity in the interval, which is the producing zone.
Okay, and is the unitized interval also set forth in the unit agreement?
Yes.
Okay, let's go on to the next exhibit, and I realize that the scale of this is pretty small, and if the commission would like a PDF copy that's so they can enlarge it, we're happy to provide that. But Gary, if you can identify this exhibit and briefly describe what's contained upon it.
Exhibit 9 is a cross section of the well logs in the area, and the cross section is marked on exhibit number 6, and it just shows it has the type log on it, the cliff that was on the previous exhibit. So that's the Cliff Roosevelt number 1 well. It's the third well on the cross section here, and it also shows the wells that are outside of the Midale porous interval that we're trying to unitize here.
Okay, and it basically supplies some of the information you needed to prepare your exhibit 5 and 6. Is that a fair statement?
Yes.
Okay. And did you also have seismic to assist you in preparing exhibit 5 and 6?
Yes, we had 3D seismic.
And you also had some well control, obviously the drilling of the well with the drilling of the well with 2 legs plus the injection well. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, there's actually 3 legs on that well. There was a short one drilled, and then we sidetracked and pulled the 3rd leg.
Okay. All right, let's go on to the next exhibit, Gary. Excuse me, that's all the geologic exhibits I believe we have, so I don't have any further questions for Gary at this time.
Any questions from the staff?
Yeah, I guess first, have we had anyone introduce the unit agreement yet?
No, I'm just going to bring back Jody to have her do that.
Okay.
And then probably be,
Some of my questioning involves the combination between the unit agreement and the unitized interval on some of what was just presented.
yeah. Obviously, it's the examiner's decision, but I don't have any problem if you ask some questions about Exhibit 1 for case 30794. And if the witness has already been introduced, they can probably respond to him, but it's certainly the hearing officer's decision.
Fine.
Okay, so, Gary, looking at your Exhibit 8, the type log that you provided,
You said 8?
yeah, Exhibit 8, which is the type log, and the unitized formation as presented in the unit agreement, section 1.2 on the unit agreement, it would appear that the depths listed on the unit agreement do not coincide with the depths of the same intervals as presented on the Unit 8 exhibit. It would appear that the number that was provided for the top of the unit being 3153 and the base being 3173, those would appear to coincide with what's identified on Exhibit 8 as the top of the Midale porosity to the Mission Canyon line. So I guess
Okay.
my question for you, Gary, is the description in the unitized formation and what you have depicted as the unitized interval on Exhibit 8 correct, or is it really the depths from that description that you're trying to unitize?
The Exhibit 8 is the correct interval that we want to try and unitize. So the depths there's an error in the depths. The depths were put on as the productive interval, not the unitized interval,
Uh,
the Midale interval.
Okay, so if I were to say that the top of the Mississippian unconformity, top of the Midale anhydrite, and what you have identified as the unitized interval on Exhibit 8 appeared to come in at about 3138, would that look about right to you?
Yes,
And then the base of the unitized interval being the base of the state A, again, looking at Exhibit 8, would that appear to be closer to 3204?
yes,
Okay.
yeah. Yeah, I apologize for that error.
Mr. Examiner, I know it's not probably appropriate for me to ask your staff questions, but I think it might help me understand. Are you saying, Mr. Suggs, that 3153 should be replaced with 3138 and 3173 should be replaced with 3204?
That would appear to be the correct, and that was what he just verified as far as I was concerned, so.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
So, still on Exhibit 8, when you're referencing, the top of the Midale anhydrite, on the unit agreement in the unitized formation description 1.2, the top of the unit is described as top is identified as the Midale anhydrite within the Charles Formation, is what's in the unitized formation description. Looking at your Exhibit 8, the top of what you have identified as the Midale anhydrite appears to be the top of the Mississippian unconformity or the top of the Madison group in this area. Would it be appropriate to identify that as the unconformity?
Yes,
Would there be any opposition to requiring that change in the unitized formation description on the unit agreement?
no,
Okay. So, looking at your Exhibit 8 again, and the description of the base of the unit in this case, being the base of the State A marker. When I look at the type log, the gamma ray across that interval that goes through 3200 through 3204, where you've got the State A identified, there's zero response on that gamma. There is typically a gamma marker identified along with the State A, correct?
yes.
So do you know what was going on, or is there any explanation for why that doesn't show up on your type log exhibit? Was there something wrong with the gamma on that tool at the time?
I wasn't involved in drilling on the well. I think they must have just started logging a little bit higher. But if you notice on the resistivity log, there's an SP blip, and that's what we use to identify the State A.
Okay, that was one of my follow-up questions. So the marker that you have identified was based on the SP curve from the resistivity. Is that correct?
Yes.
Are there any other vertically drilled wells in the immediate area that have a gamma marker available for the State A instead of just the SP?
We can check. Yeah, I'm sure there's some outside the unit area that we can provide.
Okay, I think I'm gonna ask that if there is another, log in the immediate area that would better identify the base of the unit based on the gamma signatures, and it would be appropriate still and representative of the unit, that we consider, revising the type well and selecting the unitized interval off of that, as the type well for the unit. So if that is the case, we'll be asking for supplementals. So if that is the case, if you have that, I think revise the unitized agreement and the type well, and probably this Exhibit 8 to go off the other well.
Okay.
Okay?
As an alternative to that, the legs that you identified on your previous example, or the previous exhibits, do you know, Gary, the productive legs of those laterals on, I'll use Exhibit 7 here, are they entirely within what you have as the Midale porosity, so between your marker of the Midale porosity top and the Mission Canyon top?
They're very, the productive interval is entirely within that interval.
Okay, but can you confirm whether the legs, the horizontal legs themselves, stayed 100% within that?
They might have strayed up above the unconformity for like a few feet, but we didn't think that there was any there wasn't enough, evidence in the samples to confirm that, and there was no evidence of any oil or gas shows when we strayed out of it.
Okay, do you believe there's any chance that you dipped below the Mission Canyon marker?
No.
Okay, how about your injection?
No.
Sorry.
Sorry, like not within, we didn't stray more than a foot above or below, the Mission Canyon or the Mississippian unconformity.
Okay.
Like we stayed very close to that.
Okay. How about the injection well itself? Is that drilled entirely within that Midale porosity interval, or is that drilled lower?
We basically stayed in the Midale porosity interval with the injection well 100% of the time.
Okay. So I guess what I'm going to propose then would be an alternative if, for whatever reason, if a type log isn't identifiable, would you have opposition to, I guess, reducing the unitized interval to go from the top of the Mission Canyon unconformity to the top of the Mississippian unconformity to the top of the Mission Canyon as you have it identified on Exhibit 8?
No.
That slightly smaller unitized interval would be identifiable on the gamma signature on this type log, and it would suit their unitized interval entirely?
Yes.
Okay. I think that as an alternative, if another type log isn't identifiable, that's an acceptable adjustment as well, as long as it allows the unit as is.
In the supplemental exhibits, we'll try to address that point.
Right. So, when you were discussing your Exhibit 4 and 5, you indicated it was all done via both seismic and type log, or not type log, but log evaluation, well control?
Yes.
I guess I have a question on your Exhibit 4. It indicates, and you did testify, that it was the top of the Midale porosity that is the surface that's being mapped here, and that goes well outside the unitized interval. But when you flip the page and look at Exhibit 5, you're showing me a Midale porosity that goes to 0 on a boundary.
Yes.
How did you continue to map the surface if the porosity went to 0? Is there still a marker there that you're mapping for the top of the Midale itself, as opposed to the Midale porosity's presence?
Yeah, well, we were using our seismic to kind of, gauge where it would be if it wasn't eroded out. These are interpretive maps, and we don't think that the porosity does go very far, if at all, outside the isopac map of the porosity area.
Okay, so despite what's drawn on Exhibit 4 with a surface that extends well outside the area, yeah, the porosity pod that is being considered here, you believe you have the right boundaries when you look at Exhibit 5.
Correct.
Okay? Going from Exhibit 5 to Exhibit 6, where you go from the isopac of the Midale porosity to the net pay map, what are your parameters for netting down that Midale porosity to a net pay?
We use the well control, which includes the horizontal legs that we drilled and our 3D seismic. So we think that there might be, there's hardly any water laying at all in here. Like we weren't sure of how much, if any, water laying there was in here, because you couldn't see anything on the open hole logs. So we basically used the well control for the most part, and then the seismic confirmed the structure.
Okay, but when you go from so I'm looking at Exhibit 5, you got some control points right in the middle. You have about 20 feet of thickness. Out on the ends, I see some zeros. When I look at the same wells over on Exhibit 6, and you have it called out that the net pay values are in red here, that same value that went from 20 on Exhibit 5 goes to 12 on Exhibit 6. So are you using a porosity cutoff?
Oh, sorry. Yes, we are.
Okay, so
Yeah.
give me those parameters that go from the map, the icepack of the thickness to your net pay.
The porosity cutoff,
Yep.
I believe it was 12% that we used.
Was that the only thing that you used to reduce the isopac down to a net pay?
Yes.
Okay.
I'll have to confirm that. Like, it might have been 15, but I'm pretty sure it was 12.
Can maybe address that in your supplemental, if you can confirm that value.
Okay.
So there was some discussion, before I get to that, I'll come back to that. So on your Exhibit 8, the type log, and Exhibit 9, your cross-sections, I am going to ask that they be provided digitally for the records, but I'm also going to ask that on your Exhibit 9 cross-sections, can you include the same markers, being the Midale and Mission Canyon? What else was I looking at? Sorry, okay, the base of the State A was the one that I identified wasn't present across any of the wells on the cross section. And the Midale porosity marker / Mission Canyon, if you can make sure that basically all the call outs that you have on Exhibit 8, can you try to include them across all of Exhibit 9 as well?
Yes.
Okay, I guess lastly, there was some discussion about what should be included in the unit area with respect to, the lands and the spacing unit, and then, looking at your Exhibit 5 and your Exhibit 6, it would appear that the productive interval is confined to primarily the west half of what was set up as the spacing unit. How firm are your lines, I guess, on your Exhibit 5 and Exhibit 6, the boundaries of the Midel porosity and the net pay. You mentioned you use seismic. Was there a particular process you used to identify that porosity pod? And do you have something that can be provided as far as that evaluation, so we can gauge that?
Well, the edges of the Exhibit 5 and 6, they're not, I wouldn't say they're highly interpretive, but there's definitely some interpretation done. But I wouldn't expect those edges to change but much more than 100 or so feet either edge. But I guess it's really difficult to know for sure. But the seismic more or less was working for us. There's always discrepancies with seismic when you're trying to drill a zone this thin. But we use when we're drilling the legs, we use the like that. The one leg when we drilled out of the zone, and then we sidetracked and drilled the third leg. And like the problem is to try and define to go back and try and drill further east. Like it's all money when you're trying to get these things drilled in a timely fashion. And so we just decided to drill our last leg, kind of steer a little bit further west, which is the southeast leg. So, but I don't think there's much of a chance that the pool would extend more than 100 or a couple hundred feet over to the east than what we've got on here now. There's always that chance, but we didn't really want it to, go and spend some more money and drill another leg over there, just because we were experiencing some cost overruns when we drilled as well.
Okay.
That being the 36H.
When you're evaluating your seismic, do you use a particular interpretation process? I believe it's inverse. Oh, what's the? There's a process for identifying porosity pods on the seismic, and I'm drawing a blank on the term at the moment. I consistently forget this term, but do you use something, a specific process for identifying the porosity pods when you're evaluating your seismic?
We used a couple of things. We do look at the amplitude on the to see if we could map this out on our seismic, and the type well had a solid log, and so you can make a synthetic from the type log and tie it into your seismic, and then we use the isopack or the isochron on the seismic from the Mission Canyon top. Shows up fairly well on the seismic. The top of the Mississippian doesn't show up quite as good, and that's where the uncertainty comes in with the interpretation. But that's what we use, is the isochron from the top of the Mississippian to the top of the Mission Canyon, and where that gets too thin, we interpret that as not having any of the reservoir left. So that edge, that eastern edge, is put on with that seismic. The uncertainty comes in with the top of the Mississippian. It can be difficult to map that, because what happens is that what we call the Midel anhydrite will thicken and thin, and that will affect where you pick the top of Mississippian on your seismic. When it thickens and thins, it changes the character of the seismic lines,
Okay.
of the waves, I guess.
All right. So when you're doing that evaluation, do you end up with a product like a heat map of sorts that indicates where the porosity would appear to be most prevalent?
Yeah, it's an amplitude map, and we use it, but it doesn't work it works a little bit, but because of the thinness of the zone, like it's only 20 feet thick at the best, and it's just, you can't hang your hat on that map 100%. You have to look at the thickness map too.
Okay.
And it's more we go actually more off the thickness map than we do off the amplitude.
Okay, and the thickness is still based on your seismic and then well control, right? So that'd be your Exhibit 5 ISOPAC?
Yeah, we use the thickness map, the isochron map from the seismic, and the well control.
Okay, I think that's all I've got for you at this time. Thank you.
Gary, you had alluded to the fact of contracting the size of the unit would not be well received by the mineral owners. Nobody would be cut out, it just their interest would be either, their percent interest would be impacted?
Yeah, but there are some mineral owners that we've had a lot of dialogue with when we lease them, and they're definitely going to be, they're definitely going to be aware of any reduction in their interest in the unit as per compared to their interest in the DSU.
Understood. And in the Southwest Hope Charles Huber unit, as it was proposed, we changed the name to the Southwest Hope Huber Charles unit. I assume in this case you have no objection to a similar naming convention?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Gallant,
Yes?
do you solemnly swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be true and correct to the best of your knowledge and belief?
Yes.
Don, state your name for the record, please.
Don Gallant,
And Don, by whom are you employed?
Residence Exploration North Dakota, LLC,
In what capacity?
engineering manager.
And in that capacity, you testified before the commission previously?
Yes,
Had your qualifications accepted as that of an expert?
yes.
Offer the further testimony of this witness that of an expert.
Motion granted.
Don, let's continue where Gary left off. Let's go to Exhibit 10. Can you identify Exhibit 10 and then briefly discuss what's contained upon it?
Yeah, Exhibit 10 is the summary of the field parameters of the West Roth Madison filing unitization. Formation, Mississippi and Charles, Midale Carbonate, and the average depth minus 1669 feet, 3174 feet TBD. Trapping mechanism, structural, primary depletion drive, solution gas, and then the reservoir parameters, lithology, limestone, dolostone, initial reservoir pressure around 1842 psi, oil gravity 35.9, API, GOR 502 standard cubic feet per barrel, and the original oil in place calculated from net pay 1,839,968 barrels, average porosity 15%, net pay 15 feet, water saturation 45%, oil formation volume factor of 1.1, and reservoir temperature 108 degrees. Resistivity of formation 0.063 ohm meters.
Okay, let's go to Exhibit 11.
Exhibit 11 is primary production data as of September 30th, 2023. So it's the initial, it's the primary decline curve for the filing 3 of 36 producer. On the bottom table, the ultimate volumes calculated at 30,000 barrels. Human production up to September 30th was 10,400 barrels, remaining 19,600 barrels.
Okay, and Exhibit 12.
Exhibit 12 is the primary production economic summary of the remaining reserves of 19,600 at 10% NPV value of 944,300. And then on the bottom, before tax cash flow of 752,100.
All right, then let's go on to Exhibit 13.
13 is the projected production economic summary of adding injection. And what we have here is the ultimate volume of 92,000 barrels. Cumulative production to December 2023 is 12,500 barrels. Remaining volume of 81,600 barrels.
Am I reading this correctly, Don, that if this unitization as proposed is approved, you're looking at basically tripling the production from primary to secondary?
That's correct. That's our estimate, yes.
Let's go then to Exhibit 14.
Exhibit 14 is the production economic summary of incremental economics of adding the injection. Remaining reserves, 92,000 barrels, NPV of 3,415,000, and the operating costs estimated around 1,320,000, with the capital cost noted at 1,622,000.
All right, and Exhibit 15?
Exhibit 15, summary of the economic, incremental economics, and at the top left-hand corner, the oil in place calculation for the filing unit, where we use the oil saturation 0.55, porosity 0.15, and a constant of 77.58, and BOI of 1.1, acre feet of 28.99, and then the formula that was used to come up with the oil in place number of 1,839,968 barrels. And further down, the primary production estimated, as I previously stated, and then the cum recovery to December, 12,500 barrels roughly, and the percent cumulative of oil in place of 0.7%. So the ultimate primary to abandonment without any injection of 30,000 barrels, and the primary to abandonment 1.6%. And on the right side, the secondary production, estimated incremental based on secondary production, 92,000 barrels. Percent of secondary production, 5%. And primary and secondary, we're estimating around 122,000 barrels. And the primary and secondary oil in place 6.6%. And on the economic summary, we used an estimate of $70 per barrel, and the unit operating costs, as previously from the summary, 1,319,300. Capital investment, 1,622,000. And that's for the injector that we drilled last year and tied in and completed. And the PV of 10%, 3,414,600.
Okay, and then Exhibit 16?
Exhibit 16 is the current 12-bore schematic of the injector, filing 6 and 36H injector.
That's how it currently exists, is that correct, for the pilot project?
Yes, it is, and there will be no changes.
All right, and then Exhibit 17, can you tell us what that is and briefly describe what's contained upon it?
Yeah, Exhibit 17 was what we had applied for in the pilot for the 6 and 36 injector. And we started that injection September 27th, 2023. And this was under case number 30008 in April 27th last year, and approved under order 32617, June 29th last year.
And have you followed through basically with this plan as you have it shown on your Exhibit 17?
Yes, that's correct. And monthly submissions of injection have been done on the North Star.
And based on the performance of the pilot project, residence has determined that it's appropriate to go forward with a secondary recovery project and unitization of this area. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Don, in your opinion, is the unitized management, operation, and further development of the proposed West Ross Madison filing unit reasonably necessary in order to effectively carry on secondary recovery operations you have proposed?
Yes,
And in your opinion, is the proposed unitization of the West Roth Madison filing unit feasible? Will it prevent waste, and will it, with reasonable probability, result in the increased recovery of substantially more oil and gas from the proposed unit area than would otherwise be recovered?
yes,
And in your opinion, is the estimated additional cost of conducting unit operations for the proposed West Roth Madison filing unit less than the value of the additional oil and gas that will be recovered?
yes,
And in your opinion, is the proposed unitization of the West Roth Madison filing unit for the common good, and will it result in the general advantage of all owners of the oil and gas rights within the proposed unit area?
yes.
No further questions of Mr. Gallant. We do want to call Jody again to discuss Exhibit 1 in case 30794.
Any questions from the staff?
Don, just a couple of questions for you on your Exhibit 15. The oil in place number you have listed there of 1.8 million. When we crunch the numbers, or when we put those same parameters you have listed there in to your equation, we get 1.6 million. Is that just a typo here, or do you know where that discrepancy would have come from?
No, I'd have to look back at that.
Okay. I guess I'll ask that, in the supplemental, if you can take a look at that calculation and confirm what that's supposed to be, and if any of those parameters change as presented on Exhibit 15. I guess some of those parameters are also on Exhibit 10, but they're the same between Exhibit 10 and 15. I just get a different oil in place number. So if you can correct that, or confirm what the discrepancy is and correct the other number.
Okay,
And then I guess just some question on what you have for your ultimate primary to abandonment number and your secondary number. You got 30,000 barrels to abandonment of 1.6%, and then 92,000 barrels, 3 times that, in secondary. What's a typical primary recovery factor when unitizing something in the Madison? Is it around the 1.6% range, or is it something a little bit more than that?
I believe it's reasonable, maybe it's their guesstimate.
I mean, would you likely be abandoning, without the water flood, without the injector drilled in the middle, would you likely be abandoning this well after 30,000 barrels of production? Just seems like an off percentage to me between the two.
That's a difficult. Sorry, just one minute, please. Well, I guess we see pretty severe decline on the well without the water injection. We were only probably producing around less than 20 barrels a day. And with the pilot injection here, we saw a doubling of that production up to averaging 40 barrels a day.
So with that severe decline, you projected you could possibly be at abandonment and not economic at about 30,000 barrels total produced?
That's correct, yes.
Okay.
That's our guesstimation.
Okay, it's not probably critical in this case, as we're not having a phase one, phase two determination trade-off, but it was just a discrepancy that popped out and the numbers looked out of proportion to me, but.
But is it the case that the percentage of primary that you believe is too low, or is that what you're, I'm not sure that I follow your questioning.
In general, I'd anticipate something in primary and between, you get about another 50% or about the same amount in secondary as you would in primary. So you go from maybe 30 to 60 instead of 30 to 90.
Okay.
And so it just seems out of proportion that you'd have 30,000 barrels in one and actually get up to 3 times that in secondary.
Okay,
But
I follow you.
just proportionally it seemed off. I think that's all I've got. For him, thank you.
Okay, Lawrence, you can proceed.
Okay, we'll recall Jody Gosling. Jody, do you have a packet of exhibits before you for case 30794?
I do.
And can you turn to tab 1 in that packet? Is that the unit agreement for the West Roth Madison filing unit area?
It is?
And have you turned to tab 2? Is that the unit operating agreement for the same proposed unit?
Yes.
And now I'm going to have you turn to exhibit, or I keep saying exhibit 1, tab 3. Is that a summary of the royalty owner ratifications in this proposed unit?
Yes.
And can you tell me what the percentage of ratification is of the royalty owners?
It is 76.95%.
I'm a little reluctant to ask, but is that what your exhibit reflects, Mr. Examiner, since we had some other? Okay, great. And then I'm going to have you turn to Exhibit 4. And is Exhibit 4 the various ratifications, when added up, gets you that 76% that you identified in the previous tab?
Yes.
And then if I direct your attention to tab 5 in Exhibit 1, is that the working interest owner ratification?
Yes.
And I believe you testified earlier that Residence owns 100% of the working interest. Residence obviously supports the unit, so you have 100% of ratification on that.
Yes.
And, Mr. Examiner, I'll point out that there seems to be a discrepancy here on the total number of acres versus the total number of acres in the unit area. So we'll determine what is correct in the unit agreement I'm talking about. We'll determine what's correct and make sure that those two numbers correlate with one another. And then finally, Jody, if we go to tab 6, is that an execution of the unit agreement and unit operating agreement by Residence Exploration, North Dakota LLC?
Yes, it is.
And that would demonstrate the 100% participation of Residence, is that correct?
Yes.
I don't have any further questions. If I have not offered the exhibits, I would offer the exhibits at this point in time, for both cases.
Exhibits are admitted, and just to clarify, we're going to keep the record open.
Till
Do we need it in both cases or just in the one case?
I think we should probably keep it open in both cases, so that in the event I want to submit some documents into this, I can do that. Just give me more flexibility.
So we'll keep the record open in both cases until June 10th.
Okay, perfect.
Okay. Any questions from the staff?
Jody, looking at the unit agreement, section 1.22 on page 3, the definition of natural gas. The second line in there indicates with respect to outside substances, natural gas shall mean all methane and ethane and 35% of any propane. What's the purpose of the only 35% on that definition?
I'll answer that. This is what I'll refer to as a standard unit agreement. The commission has seen this many times. I didn't go in and fly-spec it, so to speak, to find out why it was done this way. It's just, that's what we've submitted. I think it's meaningless in this application because there's no plans to inject any sort of natural gas.
Right. Natural gas isn't prohibited via the unit agreement, though, right? It could convert to a gas injection if sometime down the road they chose to?
I believe so, but if this particular provision causes you problems, then I would suggest in the unit, in the order approving the unit, you just limit it to water.
Okay. Unit agreement, section 2.21.
Unit agreement, 2 point,
So this is, it's referencing Exhibit A from the unit agreement.
you said 2.2, that's 2.1.
Sorry, what did I? Yeah, so I just, 2.11, still on page 3.
Yep.
Typo in my notes. Exhibit A, so I'm just referring to Exhibit A here. There's no township and range reference on your Exhibit A. I think that's probably appropriate to include. Right now, it's just part of 36 and 1 of some section somewhere in, so probably just include that on the Exhibit A of the union agreement.
Is that correct?
So, section 3.4 on page 4. So in the continuation of these terms, there's some odd language. It reads, production from any part of the unitized formation, and then this phrase, except for the purposes of determining payment to royalty owners or unit operations. Is that a misplaced phrase?
Once again, it's from a standard unit agreement that has been submitted to the commission many times. I can go through this particular provision and see if it needs to be in here. Just looking at it quickly here, I think it could be revised or totally deleted, but I will do that and get back to the commission by the 10th.
Okay. At a glance, it looked like it was just a misplaced phrase, somehow copy and pasted in the wrong spot. I don't think it affects that section, but 5.1 on page 6. So 5.1 typically is where we would see the language regarding phases and factors within your formula. That language hasn't been included in this section. Is there a reason why that hasn't been included?
Yes, because we're dealing with one tract and we don't have phases.
Is it clear elsewhere in the application that it's the payout is based on 100% to the surface acres? Would it be inappropriate to include a section that would say phase 1, it's a single phase, and that 100% to surface acres in this section?
I don't think it would be inappropriate. I don't think it's necessary, but we certainly don't have any problem with including language along those lines if the commission deems it to be appropriate.
If it's not a problem to include it, I think it would add clarity to what the what the formula is for payout on this.
I think certainly someone who doesn't have a lot of familiarity with unit agreements and unit operating agreements, it is going to add some clarity. So I agree with you.
Okay, so then I would ask that you add it in that case.
Not a problem.
And Lawrence, if you're gonna add that in, refer to those as mineral acres, not surface acres.
Okay.
Um, 6.6 on page 7. This is with respect to outside substances again, and what would be injected in the unit. And it's already been indicated that the plan is water, right? We're not planning to inject water, or sorry, anything other than water. But the definition for natural gas and how the royalties would be paid on natural gas recovered, it basically indicates in part 1 here that I have it marked as multiple parts. The first two, maybe sentence or two here, indicate that natural gas wouldn't be paid royalty. Injected natural gas wouldn't pay out royalties until post blowdown, where other outside substances injected, if recovered fluid like propane and whatnot, would be accounted for on a monthly basis. Again, is that something that can maybe just be stricken here?
Yeah, I think to simplify the document, obviously I need to talk to my client about this, but I think it makes sense if we're going to probably get rid of the other provision having to do with natural gas, we get rid of it here as well. And in the event there's ever a situation where we would want to inject outside substances, we could seek an amendment. But I would guess that the only way that's going to happen is if we were to unitize a larger area, and then you'd have another unit agreement, unit operating agreement to work with. So I don't think there'll be a problem deleting that.
Okay. .1 on page 8, use or loss of unitized substances. I guess last sentence in that paragraph there. Unitized substances so used or injected and unitized substances lost shall be excluded when allocating substances to the tract. Is there a definition of what constitutes unitized substances lost?
Not that I'm aware of.
Should there be one?
If the commission thinks there should be one, yes.
We'll take that under consideration and discuss it, I suppose.
Yeah, and I mean, if you make a determination before the 10th that that's something you want, perhaps the hearing officer can let me know, and then we'll include something.
Okay. 8.2, still on page 8, storage of unitized substances. This, again, I'm assuming this has been in plenty of unit agreements in the past. I'm become more sensitive to this situation in my current roles, but the reading here is that the unit operator and working interest owners are hereby granted the right to inject unitized substances and outside substances into the unitized formation for storage. The state now has different rules and regulations surrounding storage of natural gas or hydrocarbons and CO2. There's new chapters, new administrative code around those things. I don't feel it's appropriate to have this language. I don't think it can convey that approval to store those substances when there's other statutes and regulations around them today. Do you know what the intent of that language is in this case?
I think it was adopted a long time ago, and it was a protection for the operator and the other working interest owners, so that if they wanted to use the reservoir for storage, they could do that without paying. I can also tell you that so long as I've been doing this, which has been a long time, the federal government has always rejected this provision. And if we were utilizing the federal form here, we aren't obviously, because there's no federal lands involved, this would be stricken. So if you're heading down the path of suggesting this can be stricken, I would talk with my client about that, or we might use some language that it would have to be done in accordance with certain section or chapter of the Century Code, one or the other.
Okay. I think it's probably appropriate to address that
Okay.
somehow here. Either adding that it would be in accordance with those or possibly striking it,
Yep.
but, and in general, I guess, moving forward for future units where these kind of standard forms get brought in, it's probably a consideration to either consider doing something with that language from the start, so. I think that's all I've got. Thank you.
I want to thank you, Mr. Suggs, for obviously spending the time that you did to go through this very carefully because, I mean, particularly the last item you discussed, there's been a change, as you pointed out, in statutes and North Dakotan rules that make some of this stuff inapplicable, and appreciate your effort in going through it.
Lawrence, I have one question that may be for you. It's Article 17,
Unit agreement or unit operating?
unit agreement. It doesn't identify how the unit can be terminated by mineral interest owners. Is that because that's set forth in statute?
I'm under Article 17, which section?
Well, it's not there. There's no, it's not identified
Oh,
how
I
the
see what
unit
you're
can be terminated by the mineral interest.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, you know, this governs things, but if there's things that are in the statute, it doesn't necessarily have to be in the unit agreement to give that authority to a royalty owner.
Okay, that's what I thought. And then getting back to the COPUS, is that more appropriate to ask Jody about that, or, because you had talked about that it may have been amended, but when I read it, it still says, you know, prime plus 3% in this one that I have in front of me.
Yeah, I think that's the same problem as we discovered earlier in terms of the changes not being made. Mine has been changed, and I
Okay.
just don't know what happened, and we'll obviously correct that. And once again, I offer my apologies for
Okay.
the error.
All right, thank you.
Okay, nothing further. That concludes our hearings for case numbers 30793 and 30794. That concludes our hearings for the day.